Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf, Roto Street, RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with the 2024 Roto Street Journal RSJ Rookie Draft. This is not a mock. This is not practice. This is the real deal. We do this every single season. I get the crew together. We have about half the league here with us tonight. They can be chiming in as the draft goes. I'll, of course, be narrating the action as it happens, pick by pick, for the podcast on the Fantasy Fullback Dive, wherever you listen. If you enjoy that, you can always check out our YouTube if you want to see the visuals to go with it and the draft board. But we are going to be giving all the picks, strategy as we go. People will be chiming in when they see a pick they hate, maybe get a little trash talk going. The end of the draft, we had a little drama right before we started going live with a trade that did or did not happen. The 103, Bijan Robinson. What happens when a co-owner comes in and doesn't honor the original owner's agreements? Is that fair? Is it not? Some good drama to chat through, but I know we want to get right into that draft. So Commissioner Jackson's going to kick us off. As you're dumping in here, though, if you have questions about your rookie drafts, your fantasy leagues, your keeper questions at all, get them on in there. We'll be happy to answer them. And the draft is now underway with Tanner coming in on fire again. We'll talk about some draft trades and whatnot. He's got the first pick of the draft. We will see where this one goes. Most people think it's a lock pick.
It really is no brainer for Caleb Williams here in Superflex leagues, especially considering my QB2 is Jimmy Garoppolo here. So gonna have to go with Caleb here. It's very easy, I'd say.
Yeah, that's a pretty much a no-brainer. Even if your quarterback situation was better, which it's not, and we can kind of show you guys some of these rosters, he is inheriting quite an atrocious situation here. Garoppolo, Trevor Lawrence has the top two quarterbacks. Not bad with Trevor Lawrence, but certainly Caleb Williams makes the most sense. Marvin Harrison flies off at the 102 as well. That's typically what you will see there, 101 Williams, 102 Harrison. I've actually seen, though, Harrison jump Williams in some of the drafts, even in Superflex, certainly in one QB, it makes sense. But in Superflex, I have seen Harrison go at the 101 plenty of times in situations where people have their quarterback set. And that's kind of maybe the first question I'll toss out there as we have Duck getting ready for pick number 3 is, does anybody have any strong feelings about like Harrison going above Caleb? Let's say you had two quarterbacks you like. Is that justifiable, or is Caleb Williams just that much of a generational prospect entering such a good situation with those three receivers? The floor is your guys. What do you guys think?
Nice. I'm actually not a big fan of Caleb Williams at all.
Really? I just selected him, so I'll throw my take out there. But this is arguably, this is the best situation for a number one overall quarterback I think we've ever seen. It's very like he has a very strong chance to increase in value and be in like the first round, mid first round of startup picks like next year. So I'm willing to take this bet on Caleb. He has Rome Odunze. They love Rome Odunze. as they say, he's a wide receiver too. But that's a pretty strong wide receiver core they have there. I love getting rid of Ryan Getsy. I think he's horrible. So I think what they got going on is pretty nice.
Yeah, it is about as dreamy of a situation as we've seen a number one overall pick enter. I have to make my pick in a second, but we can let this one kind of breathe for a sec while we debate this. Tunes, you said you did not like the pick, despite it being, again, as beautiful of a setup as you could ask for. It's not like Bryce Young walking into Adam Thielen as his number one receiver last year. But you have some reservations. What about Caleb Williams' reservations here?
It's not that I don't like the pick. In his situation, I'd do the exact same thing. But if it's like I'm thinking my team wise, I would trade out of the pick because I don't like Caleb Williams. And I think his biggest value is, like you said, he's set up for so much that next year his value is only going to go up even if he sucks this year. So like it's a smart pick by you. But for me, he's just not one of my guys.
In Superflex, too, the long tail value of the quarterbacks does seem to linger quite a bit. He gets a little bit more grace there. I love the Daniels pick, honestly, though. Certainly in redraft, I think I prefer Daniels to Williams. So we can kind of break down that. Before I make my pick just for the podcast, Neighbors went the 103, pretty typical. Rome Odunze is the number 4 pick there to Dane. Then we get Jaden Daniels going. Although Dane's pick, I was actually D'Lo who went there. Duck gets Jane Daniels at 5. So I don't know if there's some trades going on that you guys happened, or what was that pick. And then Brooks goes actually at the 106 here to D'Lo. So I'm intrigued. I'm trying to figure out what exactly happened here with some of these picks. Was there an in-draft trade or whatnot? So those were the next 6 picks. And I'll toss it kind of out there. Does anybody have anything they want to say? As I queue it up on my phone here, I got to make my pick. But any comments on it? Did a trade happen? How did we get there? Because that seems different than what the original order was.
I cannot fathom taking Jonathan Brooks in the top 6 in Superflex. I mean, I don't know. I just can't take any running back really in this class until at least the end of the first, if even. So
honestly, if Brooks made it to 8, I don't think I would have had a choice because I'm trotting out Miles Sanders and Najee Harris right now.
That's fair.
So I'm kind of rethinking my strategy now because I figured he was falling to 8.
Yeah, I'm in a tough pretzel here at 6 because I did not expect Bowers to be there. I just took Kincaid last year, but my tight end 2 is also Donald Parham right now. So I could certainly re-equip the tight end cabinet. It's the generational tight end prospect, the yards per route run, like 3. It would have been like a top 3 receiver, his metrics. Never mind, it's at the tight end position. But then I'm also trotting out Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, team Achilles at quarterback. An absolutely brutal season for me with the quarterbacks. I kind of have this win now roster here. I know it shows O'Connell, but yeah, Cousins, Rodgers. I don't know about Daniel Jones. It was a brutal situation for me last year when I have, Tyreek, I have Diggs, I have, and Deebo Samuel, great receiver core. I was ready to go all in. To have 2 Achilles tears in 1 year was not great. So I don't know. I think I'm going to probably pass up here on Bowers. Falls to maybe Keegs here. I don't know if he ends up going him or not. And then it becomes Drake Maye or McCarthy, which is another tricky situation. I love a lot about both of them. Maybe we can all debate that in a second. I think I might let my homerism take the wheel here and just hope for the best for Drake Maye. It gives you something extra to root for. So I do end up going Drake Maye there at the 107. But man, that was tough between Bowers, JJ McCarthy, and Drake Maye. Anybody have any strong feelings on? Well, we got somebody commented in here. So good pick, says Tanner. He likes the Drake Maye over the JJ McCarthy. So make me feel better. Why was it a good pick in your eyes, Tanner?
I love Drake Maye. I would take him. Like I don't know. Just me personally, I'm not touching Jaden Daniels. Don't know why. Don't know what it is. There's a lot of metrics I like about Maye too over Daniels. Just the fact that Jaden Daniels had 2 first-round receivers and Drake Maye's wide receiver was a 4th-round selection. Drake Maye can work more with a lot less. I love that pick. At 107, I'm looking at Drake Maye every time.
Yeah, and do you think it's fair to pass on Bowers even for Drake Maye?
A quarterback's value will, even if Drake Maye doesn't work out, his value will remain the same, roughly. Mm-hmm. Like Bryce Young had a horrible rookie year, and he's still somewhat valuable somehow. But I just think quarterbacks hold value a lot better than tight ends do, and if they hit, value soars. I mean, like if Bowers hits, his value can obviously go up, but not like Maye's can if he does. So
yeah, I would agree with that too. The cannon arm, the mobility, the Josh Allen if he hits type of situation. Plus, when you have a Kirk Cousins and Rodgers, like it gives you that floor to let him develop. Let's see what happens for now. But I want to take that home run swing. I wanted to equip the cupboard there. So sounds like you agree. Anybody disagree? Anybody think McCarthy, who Keegs now goes with, would have been the play, the Vikings offense? What do you think, Keegs?
I was hoping Maye would fall of the 2. I mean, I'm at the point where I can't reach for any of the running backs there. And my quarterbacks are Goff and Bryce Young, speak of the devil. So I got to try to throw something else in there. I was hoping it'd be Maye, but I'll take JJ.
Yeah. I like the long-term floor for JJ. You got Kevin O'Connell proven. I mean, Nick Mullins thrown for over 300 yards in 3 of his 4 starts, almost 400, one of them. We saw Josh Dobbs become the second coming for a little while. I even made a horrendous trade thinking that Dobbs had a nice baked-in floor there, might even move on to next year, moved a second in a playoff push after all my Achilles tears last year for Dobbs. That did not work out well by any means. the worst trade I've made in this league by a mile. So yeah, I do like McCarthy, a nice, safe, baked-in floor at quarterback. Given that you got Lamar, Kyler, Watson, though, you're pretty well equipped there. Did you give any consideration to Bowers, who's still on the board with Worthy now going here at the 108? Did you? I'm surprised to see Bowers out there. So we'll see what happens here. Yeah. It looks like CJ has taken out Padrino's pick here. So it looks like you, Tanner, know if that's who you're going to go for. Is the slide's going to continue for Bowers? I'm intrigued.
I mean, I think I have to go Bowers. I mean, my roster is decimated. My best tight end is Michael Mayer. So
teammates.
You got the handcuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have the handcuff. So that's actually a pretty good situation I'm in here.
Gronk and Hernandez. 2.0.
I did not think Bowers would fall. I don't think Bowers should fall to 110 either. But like, there's no tight end plus here. It's half PPR, so that's probably the reason for that.
Yeah. Hey, we'll see where it lands. And we got 75 of you with us right now. Love to see it. Would love to get even more of you. So if you enjoy what you're hearing, that thumbs up button does help us get out to more people over there on YouTube. The likes, the shares, retweets, all that good stuff. If you like it, get your questions on in as well. We're happy to answer them. Questions, comments, anything at all. But again, just to recap so far, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison at the 2, Malik Neighbors at 3, Roma Dunze at 4. So the big 3 receivers going kind of as expected. And then it became Daniels at 5. Jonathan Brooks is a few people surprised there at 106 by D'Lo. And then I went Drake May, followed by J.J. McCarthy, went to Keegs there. Xavier Worthy went over Brock Bowers. And there's a lot of upside there. I wrote about Xavier Worthy when we were doing our mock drafts there. I took him at the 107. Bowers was already gone at that point. And then Jimbo, or now Dane is up here after Brock Bowers does finally go there at the 109. So we'll see what Dane ends up doing here at the 110 spot. Anybody while Dane's making his pick, though, any early thoughts in terms of somebody falling further than expected, somebody going? I mean, Brooks was the first one we all kind of agreed on. What about Worthy going that early? Is that a reach, or do you guys believe the Kansas City game will be unlocked? You have Mahomes, the screen game of Andy Reid. Is this a match made in heaven, or is that a little too early for this 5'11", 165-pound beanpole?
I like Worthy a lot. I was choosing between him and JJ, but needed the quarterback more. But I think Worthy's going to be a stud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Personally, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. So I love Worthy, but there's no way I'm selecting Worthy before Bowers. I'm taking the upside of Bowers there every time. Personally, I just think it's safer.
Yeah. I think it's tough to argue against Bowers. Again, I can't believe typically going, within the top 6 picks. I'm shocked to see him. I had almost, again, as bad as my quarterback situation is in terms of youth, I really had a hard time not going Bowers there at 6. It was more so need versus talent there for sure in terms of yards per route. Like, you just look at every single metric that talks about, is this prospect going to be good? Yards per route run, yards after contact, taking backfield snaps. The guy is absurd. So sure, the Raiders were maybe the least appealing spot when they already had Maye, who you already have on your roster on that squad. A good prospect in his own right, but a guy like Bowers, he's going to walk right in. They've already talked about how special and unique he is. So I'm surprised to see him still last in there. So I don't know, Dane, you wheeling or dealing here, or what do you got going on with this pick? Is an inner turmoil? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking through here at the 111 or 110 rather?
I think I'm going to make a late pivot to what I was originally thinking here.
Yeah. Which is what? Let's see it. And this is the Jimbo. I'm trying to remember what you even traded to get into this spot for Jimbo slices.
Because there was like 3 off-season trades that ultimately got me to here. But, I'd have to pull those up.
All righty. And Brian Thomas goes. A lot of people would have him going ahead of Worthy here. What made Brian Thomas the pick for you, Dane, as Papa Tunes now takes to the clock at the 112, the defending champ here?
He was kind of of a late riser for me. The more I was kind of over time going over my rankings and thinking and rethinking and stuff. Because I was originally kind of a little bit out on him compared to guys. I was kind of thinking either McCarthy or Thomas right there. And for some reason, today, I don't know. I think yesterday I would have gone McCarthy. For some reason today, I'm liking the upside of Thomas. Kind of liking his profile. I mean, neither one of them lit it up too much in college, so it's a little hard to, I guess, project how well they're going to do in the pros based on that. So I know they're kind of close. I know McCarthy's got the big opportunity this season. I assume they're going to add to that wide receiver core over the next couple of years, unless Quentin Johnson, really turns it around. But yeah, I don't. It's not going to be just McCarthy there. And I know Thomas has got some competition for targets, but I think he can be a good all around receiver where you can see him contribute it in all levels of the field.
I mean, 17 touchdowns, a ton of them with a deep variety. A lot of people pegging him as this deep specialist only, but did a ton of it. I think 80% of his damage actually came on that 1 to 10 yard range, an untapped potential there. Obviously, if Trevor Lawrence ends up panning out and this offense continues to ascend, it's a good bet to make. I've been warming a lot. Thomas was kind of my original round one fade that I've started to warm up to a lot since the last time we did like a mock draft. Very intrigued to see what he does. A lot of smart people, JJ Zacharisa, a lot of good analysts talking a lot about him. So I think I might have switched him and McConkey in my rankings by the time's all said and done. But Tunes wraps up round one with McConkey. I'm going to have Tunes give his insight, the defending champ, on why he took McConkey in just a second. But round two kicked off with Trey Benson, Keon Coleman going to Zenos at the 202. Jalen Wright, the guy I wanted in this round, the guy I was kind of targeting, does go to the Duck here. Seems we'll be intrigued to see what the Ducks' thoughts are. So he's definitely nailed some rookie running backs in the past. But yeah, Tunes, you wrap up round one with Ladd McConkey. What's the take there? It's a pretty good one to make, but I think it's a solid pick for sure.
Solid wide receiver, great quarterback. Offensive line's getting better. He's got little to no competition. I just see volume, and volume is king.
Volume from a Justin Herbert, for sure. Now the question becomes though: is their volume really going to be there in a offense, the Greg Roman system, right? The top 3 in rush attempts in every year but one. Are you worried about that at all, or do you think he crafts it around Herbert because he knows he's got this cannon arm, and now you got the number one for this cannon arm quarterback?
I just don't see them being up by a ton where they're going to be able to run it that often, and. Why not take possibly the best wide receiver on the team? Most likely the best wide receiver on the team, at least for this year. Like Dane said, yeah, they'll bring in more, but if he kills it this year, his value is only going to go up.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of McConkey for what it's worth too. He was one of the best in this class in terms of beating zone, in terms of beating man too, but really in terms of zone, his numbers were even better than Marvin Harrison Jr.'s on a yards per route run basis against zone. And that's what the NFL plays at, about a 70% clip. And certainly when you're playing with Justin Herbert, you're going to have to get some guys back and play that zone and drop against him. So I think McConkey's definitely going to be finding those soft spots. I think it's a great point too. The defense, one of the worst in the league last year. Sure, Harbaugh could maybe change some things, but I don't know if they can have an overnight. You need some talent too. So I'm very intrigued to see how McConkey goes. I think he's a great round one pick. I don't typically see him fall out of round 2 at this point, or into round 2 rather. So so I think that's a solid pick. We do see again Benson, Coleman, and then Jalen Wright go, and we have Tanner now on the clock. But Doc going Jalen Wright probably a little bit earlier than his ADP might be, but you're also a big rookie running back maven in the past. So what's your take? Why did you? Some might call it a reach, but why are you going Jalen Wright there at the 203?
What does the Miami scheme do better than about anybody? What does it utilize better than anyone? Speed.
Yeah.
Jalen Wright thrived in that gap scheme in Tennessee. Once he hit the Jets, set the edge, he wasn't being caught. And one of the funny stats I learned while writing up a stock watch for this, was the first 5 yards of his 40-yard dash were faster than Devon Achan's. He can hit that edge faster than Achan, and he's stockier than Achan. Doesn't go down quite as easy. It just seems like a perfect marriage. Even if he only gets like 125 touches year one, he's still going to produce rip-off explosions. In year two, he's bound to have a greater role in the offense. It's just a no-risk investment, in my opinion.
I mean, you got Mostert at 32. Who's on my own squad right now, so I'm hoping for one last kind of good farewell tour. He might have given it to me last year, but he certainly gave me something last year. I hope it's not the last time around the sun for him, but I'm with you. I think whether it's this year or next year, if somebody goes down there, we saw Achan miss plenty of time. Like, you kind of have a two ways to contingent value there with Jalen Wright as early as year one, and certainly Mostert has got max 2 years left. Nobody has a better run game than Mike McDaniels, and certainly a better run game for speed. So I'm all in on Jalen Wright as well. I've been reaching for him in round two, maybe not quite as early as the 203. I typically can get him at the 206 to the bottom half of the round. But either way, I think it's solid. I do see Bo Nix go right after. And this, again, in a super flex league, that seems like a pretty solid value to get Bo Nix at the 204 right there. And I believe that was Tanner. So you now load up the cupboard now with Caleb Williams, with Bo Nix after first having Trevor Lawrence there. So solid stuff. Well done. What are your thoughts on Bo Nix there?
I honestly don't have any. This is my first Bo Nix share, like, out of all of my Dynasty leagues. So I haven't really been able to get him, but this seems like I agree with you. This seems like a crazy evaluation in super flex leagues. I think he should be going more around that first round turn.
Yeah, I think so too. Sean Payton, there's a ton of great tweets out there. I don't know the exact stats at the top of my head, but it was like, the corpse of Russell Wilson last year, Drew Brees on his last legs, whether it was Stidham, he's always kind of squeezed out value out of whoever is at quarterback. And maybe it was obviously, I think he got a little bit overhyped because of how good Drew Brees was for so long, but it has historically been a quality passing game. This is the exact type of guy, the point guard type of quarterback, the distributor that he wants. And his kind of legacy now for Sean Payton, at least for his Denver legacy, is riding on Bo Nix. So he kind of needs this one to work. I love Bo Nix. I love when he's been falling into the second rounds of drafts. So I think it's a great pick, especially when you need quarterback play right off the bat here. Doug did comment in a great one too about when we were on Brian Thomas. I'm just seeing here. Lawrence was among the league leaders in passive 20+ air yards that went for TDs, 100%. And we also have probably all seen that montage of the touchdowns that didn't happen, that were right off of Ridley's fingertips or whoever it might end up being in that video. So he was so close, even though he did have plenty of 20+ air yard TDs. There was a lot that were unconverted, that were just a hair away, that we could be looking way different at Trevor Lawrence. So I'm still on the Jags, on Trevor Lawrence. I think Brian Thomas is the perfect type of weapon to mix in there. But I am on the clock before I went. So again, it went Benson 201, Keane Coleman, Jalen Wright 203, Bo Nix 204, Marshawn Lloyd, one of my favorite picks of this class as well. Blake Corum going right before me, as did Michael Penix, who's someone I was intrigued by because I do have Kirk Cousins. I was kind of hoping that I could get Michael Penix there and get this Falcons attack for the long run. Sadly, that is not the case, but I will have to queue up my pick on the phone, opening up the floor. Any picks that went that people are surprised by or wanted to highlight, Corum, Penix, whoever. Is there anybody that's jumped to the radar for anybody as I get my pick going here?
Duck taking Lloyd with my pick just stings a little extra with what my running backs are looking like right now, and then Corum going right after. So I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do.
Yeah, this was interesting. It's about like an hour ago. Duck trades his 2026 first to Jackson for the 203 and the 205 and the 302, which I think at face value, I think most people are probably taking the first there if we're taking context all the way out for what draft year it is and whatever else. But I feel like I knew exactly who he was going to be taking with his first two picks out of that trade, because that's exactly what I was eyeing up when Jackson was floating around his 2026 first. And I probably should have jumped on it when I had the chance too, because this is I don't know, I'm a little bit out on on Josh Jacobs' future career arc here too. I think Marshawn Lloyd's time might be a little sooner rather than later. So, this could quickly turn into Jalen Wright and Marshawn Lloyd, even turning into first round trade values even as soon as next year. So I think I might have missed an opportunity today before we got going, when we had three or four dynasty trades about an hour or two before we got started here.
Yeah, we had a few bombs dropping. Similarly to Dade, I got that offer from Jackson. I think he was kind of all about stockpiling some 2016 or 2026 rather capital for those second rounders. He had kind of that stockpile, that glut of it, and must not believe in this class in particular. But I think this class is getting undervalued at the running back position. There's a great podcast with Sean Siegel and Ben Gretsch over the RotoViz podcast. They were breaking down how this rookie running back class is getting overlooked, overshadowed, and how good of spots they landed on. You highlighted Jalen Wright, the speed already we talked about with Duck, but then Marshawn Lloyd, I'm with you. I don't know if I believe in Josh Jacobs in the short term or long term. And at minimum, they've already talked about Lloyd kind of being their Aaron Jones this year. They'd love to use two backs. I'm a huge fan of Lloyd. I wanted one of those two guys to fall to me. I'm not mad about the rest of the way this has gone so far. It went Lloyd, then Corum, who obviously goes to the Rams, Michael Penix, and then my pick was the 208 there. I had Jimbo. I had picked up his pick through a trade with Duck involving Jamison Williams and Christian Kirk earlier. I go Ricky Purcell. I'm pretty happy to get him here. I have some really solid veterans, but it's the Tyreek Hills, it's the Diggses, the guys that are probably on their back nine here. So I don't necessarily need Purcell to step right into my lineup this year. And I bet by this time next year, when one of Ayuk or Debo, no matter what Purcell does this year, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at him as a nice. I could probably move him for a first next year, a late first or something of that nature. So whether it's draft capital, just drafting him for the stockpiling talent in that sense, or I just really believe in the player too. I love him. He's always getting open. It's you always want to take these bets on these good offense of the 49ers. So I love getting Purcell there at the 2-8. Then Vidal goes. Love the hit. It's a running back heavy draft for sure. Compared to what I typically see, it's supposed to be a receiver based class, a class that's one of the best receivers of all time. But we're not seeing a ton of them go because we see Vidal, we see Sinnott go there at the 210. Bucky Irving then goes to Keegs, who was definitely desperate for running backs and pulls the trigger there on Irving. And then we get A.D. Mitchell wrapping up the first round there for Duck again. The second round Maven there wraps up our round two. So a lot of picks to break down. I just kind of gave my Purcell, wanted to hype my own pick, of course. But we then have Vidal, Sinnott, Irving, again, Mitchell. Go. Anybody have any other thoughts they want to toss out there on any of these as we now get into round three in a few? What's some thoughts on round two? I do see the Vidal hype trade is reaching all-time high as one of the comments there. So Tanner, not a believer necessarily in Vidal.
I'm not a hater or nor a believer, but I just think 209 for Kamani Vidal is crazy. That's I don't know. I just think it's pretty absurd. The hype is definitely and Bucky Irving too. I don't know. I just don't see a path. Bucky Irving to me is literally reminds me of Tank Bigsby Etienne situation a little bit.
Oh man.
So I don't know. That's just my take, but I'm sure people are higher on Kamani and Bucky than I am. So
what do you think, Keeks? Were you hoping for Vidal? Were you going Bucky over him anyways? You got to defend your Bucky Irving claim.
I was probably leaning Bucky if they both fell. I expected one of them to go, so I was just going to take the scraps. I would have loved to go Mitchell there if I could afford to not go running back, but I really couldn't because I do like Mitchell a lot. But I think I probably like Bucky a little bit better out of those two, just in terms of year one potential opportunity, but it's not a huge difference.
Yeah, I prefer Bucky myself too. All the metrics on Rachaad White's as a rusher over expectation, bottom 10% in the league. And a lot of people here love Rachaad White, and that's fine. Great receiver. You can't argue that. As a big back with some speed, but as a runner, they kind of talk about how they want to take some off his load. They're already hyping up how Bucky Irving sees it and goes, and it almost seems like a veiled shot at how we just see Rachaad White dance and not hit the hole and get tackled behind the line of scrimmage He did seem to figure out a little bit as a runner as the season went on, but I like Bucky Irving. I know he was one of your guys too, right, Duck? Like you were hyping Irving earlier this offseason, to me at least. I know the combine was a little ugly with the 4.5 40 at his size, and but man, he led the NCAA in running back receptions, if I'm not mistaken, timed faster at the game speed. So was he still one of your guys by the end of the process, Duck? I know you were talking about him with me earlier this offseason.
I wasn't in love with where he wound up. He does not compare to Rashad White as a receiver. Like Rashad White is just an absolutely tremendous receiver, and his role is pretty secure. I think Irving could just chip into it a little bit. But as a player, yeah, I'm still very much into Irving. Elusivity and vision are huge things that I look for in running backs, as you well know. And I think Irving was among the best at forcing missed tackles, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely, yeah. Missed tackles, force per touch was one of the best. That kind of phone booth runner that can make you miss, can run you over even though he's small. Yeah, he was very high up in a lot of those metrics. But again, I guess the story of this draft, and I don't know how everybody else's rookie drafts out there, feel free to comment them in again on YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're at. Let us know what your thoughts are so far. Any picks you love, any picks you hate. Would love to get your guys' takes out there as well. But my kind of surprise, again, is the fact that we've had almost as many, if not, I'm counting them up right now, like running backs and receivers pretty equal so far in a class that, again, everyone lauded as one of the most receiver-heavy classes. I'm surprised to see all of these running backs flying. We still have some interesting receiver talents. I know we're on round 3, so feel free to make your pick at any point, Tay. You don't have to wait for me, but we got some really interesting receivers still lingering out there. I'm not even going to say too many of the names because I definitely have intrigued to see.
I'm actually completely stuck between two here right now.
Who are you weighing? You got 15 seconds to choose. The dreaded tick, and he ends up going Burton. All righty, let's hear why you go Jermaine Burton, who Duck throws the hat. Clearly somebody Duck must have wanted there as well. And somebody I loved, it clearly was not going to make it to me. But you end up going Jermaine Burton. What's the thought process?
I mean, I wrote an article about Burton. I'm probably higher on Burton than most are. He doesn't have like a crazy, like multiple 1,000-yard seasons or anything out of college. He's just a very interesting prospect. And also I like just the future of him in the sense that T. Higgins' future is very, murky after this year. So if he leaves, I mean, that wide receiver 2 role is wide open too. And I think Burton is probably, even this year, is going to produce more than Tyler Boyd did at wide receiver 3. So
he very well could. One of my favorite evals, Matt Harmon out there talking about without the on-field concerns, or off the field concerns rather. If it was just pure on-field, he would have likely been a round 1 type of talent receiver. Now landing with Joe Burrow.
That's probably why he fell a little bit.
Yeah, that's the case. If that's the profile, and he ends up kind of figuring everything out, you mature, you get in the right system, and I think the Bengals should be a fine place. You got enough veteran, mature. We have a title in our sights type of team that they should be able to rein him in there. I think it's a great pick. You got long-term upside, you got short-term upside. I'm a huge fan of Burton. Roman Wilson goes right after him. Now Tunes is on the clock with the 303, starting to see a little bit of a receiver run here. Sounds like there might be some type of wheeling and dealing. Tunes, I thought he was getting him at the 303 with Burton. So a lot of people, that's Vidal I think he's talking about before. Yeah. So Vidal going a little bit earlier than a lot of people expected for sure. So we got Michael O'Hara commenting fooled. So he's talking about, again, me confessing my sins and trading a second for the Pastronaut. Josh Dobbs there. Yeah, I got completely fooled. It was you want to know the moment that tricked me was when the hype video came out with him singing Creed Higher. I think we all saw that video of like him mouthing that guy that behind him. If you haven't seen the video, it's great. Like Josh Dobbs, a guy was singing to it as Dobbs was like going to score the big touchdown when he had that crazy run with the Vikings. Like, that's it. My team, I have the receivers. I can go all in. Dobbs is the one that will push me over the edge, and I'm going for the title. And clearly did not work out. So just a Dynasty lesson for you all. Don't get hyped up by Creed videos with Josh Dobbs and sell the farm. But I managed to get back in round 2 by, again, trading JMO for Christian Kirk and a second. which I like. I think it worked out well for me. But Tunes, you're struggling here. Who you weighing? What are you thinking here at the 303?
I think my problem is I did so many mocks. I was like, okay, I know who I'm getting, and then they didn't fall.
No, that's why it's fun to stream it like this too. It's never going to go like a mock. It shows you guys out there like an actual draft might be a lot different than what you expect. This is certainly different than what I expected. I did never in a million years thought I was getting Ricky Pearsall there at the 208. I'm very happy to see that.
Back to back here too.
Yeah, there's a lot of good players out there though. I'm intrigued to see who ends up falling to me at the next 2 or 307 rather. But yeah,
that was the biggest reason I didn't end up going for, because those were the picks that Jackson had going into this year. That I think he put them all on the block: the 203, 205, 302, and I was eyeing up Wright and Lloyd, but it was just a matter of like, there's just so much you're not in control of on these drafts, and it's like you don't want to throw away a first rounder. Like say Duck gets sniped on all 3 of his picks today. Like, I don't know. Are you regretting trading away that first if that's how it rolled?
I think so. Yeah, it's a good point. What do you say, Ye Duck?
There's enough value in here that I would feel all right doing it. We're staring 2 years out. That's still enough time for me to get 2026 ones if I want to get them. It's just kind of taking money right now and paying for something years later, in my view. I'm more than willing to take the gamble and something like that if the value's at least decent.
Yeah, and with your RB evals, I wouldn't be shocked. And Lloyd and Wright are the profiles too. Like if just one of them hits, they have the speed to be those crazy scoring 70-yard touchdowns and getting 14 to 15 touches in good offenses. I could see either of them kind of yielding, like by 2016, we're looking at round 1 picks that you could get for one of them if you really needed it. So I think you did well with those picks. Those are the 2 runners that in round 2 I was really hoping might make their way to me. Nobody really talking about Blake Corum at all. Obviously, an interesting offense he lands in with the Rams, as good as it gets. Probably like the best handcuff in fantasy football behind Kyron Williams. But nobody really mentioned him at all while we were breaking down the round. Does anybody have anything positive, negative? Is that just kind of where he belongs there, square in the middle of round 2? Or what are people thinking about Blake Corum going there?
Well, I'm not big on it, besides the fact that we've seen the same song from Sean McVay for like years now. He really maximizes the potential of, I don't know if it's particularly just the offensive skill players, at least. I think we've seen it with probably I think defensive players too over the years, but obviously I'm not paying as much attention to them, but I'm paying attention to not just Kyron Williams, not just Puka Nacua. I'm also wondering what Cooper Kupp's career is like if he's not with Sean McVay. Robert Woods wasn't fantasy relevant in Buffalo. He wasn't that way until he got to Sean McVay's offense too. It's just, that's why if we want to go on a real deep dive, apparently I didn't know it was such a deep dive when I did it, but when the Rams signed Colby Parkinson, I traded for him. I got him off of CJ before, it became kind of more CJ and Tanner's team. I went and got him off CJ for Mike Gesicki and Jonnu Smith. Really just, I was just kind of, I missed out on him getting signed, right off the bat. CJ picked him up, and I saw that was the first wave of free agent signing. They signed Colby Parkinson, $8 million a year. I think that's with intent. And if all I get out of it is what was that, the second half of 2019, that Tyler Higbee was the tight end 1 in fantasy. If that's all I get out of it, then that's plenty worth it. But it's there's really, I don't even know if it's, I guess it's close. There's some other coaches that are close to Sean McVay. It just seems like when whoever gets on that squad, and no bigger example of that than Puka Nacua. If Puka Nacua gets drafted by anybody else, I don't know how we're talking about him right now. So yeah, I say he's good. He's good. Yeah, sure, he's good. I just don't know these other coaches. I don't know. I just don't know how they utilize him. I don't see him. I don't know if I see him breaking the rookie receiving reception record with anybody else, but kind of that offense. So
yeah, And I think it's just a good overall point too. And that's kind of my personal draft pick is like targeting these guys in these offenses where you believe in the play call, the right guy that's always squeezing the most out of his talents, knows how to use them, has a mold, and when he finds the right guy, that just goes off. That's why Puka ended up being such a home run. I tuned you were on him for a long time last year. You were texting me about Puka, but he, a yak master going to a Sean McVay offense. It just made perfect sense, and I think it's a good point. That's why I do kind of like this Corum pick. Is sure I love Kyron Williams. He won me a ton of redraft leagues last year. Was my guy. Like he panned out huge for me. But this was, Emory got him round 4 in our rookie draft in 2022. It was only the only good players in that entire class, and he went 409 in our draft. It's not a guy that's like completely insurmountable. If he's had a history of the foot injuries already flaring up this offseason, he's had ankles in college. If he goes down and Corum just kind of rips it up, you look at the Sean McVay potential workhorse there. It could happen. It could happen. I don't think that's completely likely, but just 2 years ago too. I mean, Corum was far and fully look back to himself. But what if he does another year removed? At minimum, too, I think there's a lot of touchdown upside for Corum. And it's a potential spot they could rest him. So I like the Corum pick, too. As much as I'm kind of like, I can't believe all these receivers are falling, these running backs are going, I really do think this was an underrated running back class where a ton of them landed in good spots like Wright, like Lloyd, like Corum as a handcuff. But yeah, Kamani Vidal could end up being a featured back. Bucky Irving isn't, it's not a bad spot with Rachaad White so questionable as a rusher. So I am a fan of where a lot of these rookie running backs went. It seems to me like a lot of these guys have flipped that would have normally gone round 3 with round 2, but it makes sense to me. When we did our mock draft, I ended up going 3 running backs despite saying I entered the draft with pure receiver plans. Now, it is my pick. I was really hoping Jalen Polk would make it to me. I know Tunes took him. So just to recap what's happened here in round 3, again, Jermaine Burton, 301, 302 was Roman Wilson, 303 was Jalen Polk. Then Malachi Corley goes 304. Sanders goes, Jatavian Sanders, the 3rd tight end off the board at the 305. 306 goes Jalen McMillan. And yeah, so I was hoping Polk would fall to me. I considered him honestly where I took Pearsall, but I just love the 49ers offense. But I did want to pair up Drake Maye with one of his guys, and that's kind of what I'm weighing here. Is I like Javon Baker. It feels early, especially when I have Xavier Legette. Like, I don't know what to make of the guy. It took so long to break out, but when he broke out huge in the SEC. They're already talking about using him on the jet sweeps and the. I love Dave Canales, and when he has a mold he likes, he goes for it. But do I believe in Bryce Young? Do I actually believe in the player? I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Franklin. So to me, I'm kind of weighing here. Do I get Baker? Do I pair those guys up? Does Baker potentially make it to round 4? Probably not. So maybe I don't get a Drake May stack. But Legette is just like, seems like such a big fall for a guy. This is where it starts to get to like, do you really love the guy, or just like play the value game and believe that maybe you weren't fully right in your evaluation and the fact that he was going. I haven't seen Xavier Legette make it out of round 2 very often. Never mind the middle of round 3 here. So I'm going with Legette myself there in the middle of round 3. So at the 307 there. The late breakout sketches me out, but the way he broke out was so damn impressive. Adam Thielen's on his last, probably last year, maybe 2 more. And he could be the number 1 for Bryce Young, and maybe Bryce Young has a rebound on the quarterback whisperer here. And Dave Canales, I think this is as much of a bet on Canales as it is anybody else. When we were talking about like a McVay, 49ers, I think Canales could end up being that next guy, and maybe Legette gets me in there early. I don't know. What do you guys think of any of these other picks? McMillan going there, I love that. Legette, and then Franklin coming off the board next. Anybody have any thoughts on like those 3 receivers and what to make of them? It's tough.
I was hoping Franklin would fall to me just because I have Bo Nix.
Yeah. I was thinking of that stack too. I love the Dynasty stack with going Javon Baker there. Would have been why I would do it. But yeah, and Tune's saying, come talk trade with me.
But, I'm going to have to go Javon Baker here.
Yeah. Well, I might come calling because I am very intrigued to get somebody with Drake May, whether it's
taking first only.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take the 103 from Duck. Actually, oh man, we'll talk about that one for sure as we get towards the last round here. We got to get some trade drama here right before the draft going, and I'd love to kind of debrief that at the end. But to continue going forward here, it went Franklin, Javon Baker, Ray Davis. I like that. A lot of these running backs going early, and Ray Davis kind of sneaks in there to Duck. Kentucky boy, you got to get your Kentucky shares for sure. But I love Ray Davis. What a great story, first of all. But then in terms of like his role, could he score 12 touchdowns from year one? Maybe. We saw Latavius Murray be the top. I think he was top 7 in terms of goal line carries last year. That's Latavius Murray, a corpse. So I like the Ray Davis pick a lot there. And then round 1 wraps up with Spencer Rattler and Tyron Tracy. But Duck, you got a Kentucky boy finally. What do you like about Ray Davis here?
Well, he's old, but he was a very compact, powerful, decisive runner. Not the fastest guy, but he runs routes really well and has buttery soft hands. There's plenty of work to be had there, and they don't want to use James Cook around the goal line. They heavily want to use Josh Allen, but Ray Davis was excellent at the goal line at UK, and he might be able to leverage some of those touches. And if something ever happens to James Cook, Ray Davis is a more than adequate guy to fill in for him, and gives you 70-75% in the receiving game and probably close to similar in the running game. I mean, that's about all you can really ask for. And he probably has his own role in his right. And also BBN, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I love it. I think, you outlined it perfectly. The handcuff with benefits narrative from year one. And you talked about the soft hands, and we saw, I'm sure Hardett's tweeted it out recently, and he's running these kind of crazy routes that like no one else can run. So I'm not trying to sit here and say that Cook's suddenly going to be off the field and passing downs. He runs, again, routes that running backs don't typically have in their repertoire, but he had a lot of drops. He dropped at least 4 touchdowns and multiple others. And there's some beat writers saying in early OTAs, Cook is dropping some balls as well. So it's, what if he does take some receiving work from him? I think the Ray Davis pick's a really nice one there. You've definitely made some good running back stabs. And if you like Leggett at all, maybe we could we could talk through some things here. I don't know what your feelings are, but I like the running backs you've taken for sure. You're doing some nice things. And again, we wrapped up round 3 with Spencer Rattler and then Tyron Tracy, a really interesting pick. Is that you again, Duck? You're just loading up on back after back over there? Is that what I see? Another Duck running back. I love Tyron Tracy too. You like the old backs apparently, but man, what an explosive guy. 4.3, converted receiver out of Purdue there. I'm really big fan of you look ahead of him, Devin Singletary. So another one of those situations, entering an ambiguous backfield, another one of these running backs that just gets into a spot where could easily push for some early carries. I think that's a really interesting one. Is that kind of your thought process there, Duck? Just ambiguous backfield speed, a playmaker, maybe Singletary can't hold him off, or what do you think of that?
Absolutely. And there's a principle that I love to follow called the law of large numbers. I'm a big math nerd amongst many things, but you take enough stabs at something that has odds, about 50 odds or lower, they're going to start to pan out and they're going to return value. That's just basically the mentality I'm taking here. I'm really, really skinny at running back, so I'm trying to remedy that.
Yeah. Just take a bunch of hacks at it and see if one of them connects and gets out of the park. I was kind of surprised.
Talent and opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And all of those stabs are interesting ones. And I was kind of thinking that too, Keegs, with Davis. You ended up passing up on him for Sanders. Did you think about Ray Davis at all? Or did you just need the tight end that bad too and you had to pull the trigger? You're a big fan of Sanders. What was that pick there?
I do like Sanders. He wasn't a guy I was all that big on, so I kind of forced myself to do a write-up on him like a month ago because it forced me to do some more in-depth research, and I like him a lot. I like, what I saw from that, and I'm in a pretty solid spot at tight end. I got Goddard and Njoku and then some depth guys, but, figured I'd throw him on there. I was kind of choosing between him and Leggett, which is a gross place to be with 2 Panthers, but just ended up with Sanders.
Yeah. It's, again, the Canales bet. I hear you there. He talked about a lot of routes for my tight ends in this offense. You saw Cade Otton. I think he was top 3 in routes last year. So if Sanders has any juice, he's going to get the opportunity. I think that is definitely an interesting play. So we're now kicking off round 4. It starts with Jacob Cowing, Will Shipley to begin the round 4. This is kind of where we're taking our sleepers, our stabs on those late round guys. And so as we make our picks, maybe talk about who you went with, why you went with them in round 4, starting with Jacob Cowing. I believe that is Tanner, again, Mr. Tanner Brady. What's the Cowing pick? I think it's a great one, by the way, but why?
This is just interesting. I'm not really high on Purcell at all. So I haven't really picked up any shares of him. Cowing is so cheap. Like, I've been able to get him off waivers after rookie drafts. But I've been, trying to stop that from happening and taking him in the 4th round when I can. But I'd actually take as high as like a late 3rd on Cowing. Like, Cowing was a very, very good football player at Arizona. Not just Arizona either, UTEP too as well. Pearsall never exceeded 1,000 receiving yards or more than 5 touchdowns in a single collegiate season. And his best season was, as a 5th year at Florida. Cowing's prospect profile is his entire collegiate career. He was productive from the day he stepped foot on a college campus. So I really like Cowing. And if Purcell doesn't work out, then and Ayuk or Debo leaves more room for value. So,
yeah, fair enough. In that sense, I obviously do like Purcell, so I would love to disagree with you on that one. I think Purcell is a great value at 208. I think a lot of people, CJ Stroud, of course, but a lot of great evaluators talk about how great he is against man and getting open, and that's kind of what they lacked last year. You got, Ayuk is a great man beater, but in anticipation of him potentially gone, Purcell could step right into that Ayuk role. So we'll see how this one pans out. You made a compelling case there, but we'll see.
We know Kyle Shanahan, draft capital really does not matter at all to that man. If you're good, you're going to play. So yeah.
I mean, how many 3rd round running backs have we seen Kyle Shanahan draft that are no longer in NFL, never mind on rosters? There's a big graveyard there. Elijah Mitchell buried it was a Tyrion Davis-Price that year. Was it? How many of those guys we've seen that he had to have, he banged the table for, that ends up getting canned for the undrafted guy that he goes for. So yeah, Trace Herman. Oh, that's right, Doug. Yeah, he was there. There was another one. I can't remember who it was. I always fall for it too because I love the Shanahan zone scheme. So I'm like, all right, Shanahan loves the guy. I'll go for him. And then it's the 7th rounder that ends up taking the job, the undrafted guy, not the one that I end up going for. So it's fair. The draft capital might not matter. I think round 1 draft capital, when you had 2 receivers on the roster already, I'd be stunned if that tells me Shanahan's not in love with this guy. Maybe if he comes in, he sucks. But I don't think Purcell sucks. I think he's going to be a stud. And we'll see. I don't know if year 1, if those 2 guys are still there, but especially if one of them goes instead, we will see.
Didn't Dante Pettis have some draft capital? I thought he did. It's like 2019 or something. No,
I don't know.
Maybe he's just.
I can't. That's what I unfortunately don't know. Dante Pettis' draft capital off the top of the noggin here. One of the few things.
Call yourself a wolf.
I don't think he had much though. But yeah, so I ended up going Will Shipley. Braylon Allen there in the 403. I know he's behind Breece Hall, but what I've liked about camp so far, OTAs rather, is it seems like he's the clear number 2 behind Breece Hall. So I know it's a handcuff bet. I know he's not going to do anything for me if nothing happens to Breece Hall, but if something happens there. It sounds like he is clearly already separated. I like Isaiah Davis coming in too. It seems kind of weird they won them both, but it sounds like he is really Braylon Allen outshined him. And it could be a handcuff with benefits. Could be a monster, a huge back. Could be a touchdown guy from the jump. Duck, you did go the guy that I was kind of weighing though with Braylon Allen. If that's Dylan Labe, well, I am in love with him. I've written about him at RotoStreetJournal.com already. Out of UNH, a receiving maven, the next Christian McCaffrey, some are saying. And also pretty ambiguous backfield he walks into there with the Raiders. Sure, Zamir White entering the year as the clear starter, but it's Zamir White who's done nothing until the tail end of last year. So maybe Dylan Labe gets the shot. I think it's a great fourth-round stab. It's one of my favorites. I didn't think Allen was going to be there, and I just love the recent buzz on him. But I tell you, it was tough. I really do love Labe. What do you love about him, Doc? Anything that I didn't add there?
Like you mentioned, the pass catching savant, Zeus, Zamir White, kind of he's not exactly known for his hands. I call him brick hands. Watched enough of him at Georgia, poked fun at my brother-in-law. He's a big Georgia fan over it. He's in line to get plenty of opportunity, and I don't know. There's just something about it. It's one of those weird feelings like I got whenever I made the Elijah Mitchell call.
Yeah.
I look into it, and I'm just like, all right, yeah, this is what's going to happen.
Hey,
he's gonna carve a significant chunk out of that backfield by halfway through the season. I'm calling it.
I love it. He's been one of my best ball drafting last round stabs in these early drafts, these time boxed ones like the puppy. I think he is going to carve out a role. You could look at. I wrote again about him as you can read it on the site, but all time like NCAA leader in total yardage. The receiving, he had like two. He only played at UNH. He didn't face any competition. Well, it was one game against actual competition, Western Michigan. He had like 12 receptions for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, the guy went absolutely bonkers. He had the most single receiving yards in a game last year at the running back position, the most receptions too. So I'm a huge fan of it. I think he's an absolute baller. He went to the Senior Bowl, stood out there. Like, you can blame the competition as much as you want, but when he finally, like, anytime he had to face good competition, he rose to the occasion by a mile. So I'm a huge fan of him. I kind of regret passing up on him for Braylon Allen as much as I do like Allen and the Jets, because that's just how much I've written about Labe and how much I've fallen. And I did Tom Telesco, the GM there, drafted Austin Eckler, signed Danny Woodhead. He has this kind of eye for these pass-catching sneaky backs. He already said he's got a long way to go to be those guys, but we saw a lot of those guys in his game. It could be real interesting there. After him, so some other fourth rounders we get Brendan Rice, we get Isaac Guerendo, we get Travis. The quarterback, Travis, yeah. Frank Gore, the son, Cade Stover, the tight end goes as well. So Keegs, you went with the legacy of Rice there, Jerry Rice, Brendan Rice. What are some thoughts on him?
Strong gene pool, obviously, and you kind of look at it not in the same light as McConkey, obviously, because of the talent gap, but just in terms of like who else is there. I think Quentin Johnson is terrible, and who knows where he's even going to be in a couple of years. So I like Rice and just take a stab at it. I wanted to leave the draft with a receiver, and that's where it fell. Yeah. And it's a wide open opportunity. I know we talked about McConkey going and seizing it, but you never know. Wide open there. Guerendo there. Already getting comparisons from the running backs coach to Raheem Mostert for the speed. They obviously said he's got a little ways to go in terms of his vision to develop him, but I'm a big fan of Guerendo in round 4, especially if you don't need – when you're getting to round 4, you hopefully don't need these guys to be playing for you right away, but somebody to throw into the taxi squad. Again, Kyle Shanahan's scheme, if he ends up picking it up quick, I know you look at the guy, didn't produce in college despite having a 4.3 at 240, like one of the craziest relative athletic scores of all time, but he still did nothing in college. What's up with that? Well, maybe Shanahan's the right guy to squeeze this out. Maybe the scheme does work out. Maybe he becomes a Mostert for him. So I do love the Guerendo pick. I think that's a great one for sure there. And then again, we're kind of the backup quarterback territory. I think Zenos is just in such rough shape. He goes Rattler, Travis. So he's got to get his guys because he needs quarterbacks, but not a great spot to be in a super flex league. And then we got Frank Gore, the Frank Gore's son going, and then Cade Stover. So that's kind of our fourth round so far. The last round picks people are making. We got El Padrino and Jimbo Slice and Papa Tunes. Or no, Zenos has one more actually. So he's got to restocking the cupboard. But unlike Duck, who I think you did a nice job restocking the cupboard this year, at least on paper. These running backs, interesting stabs. Let's see what happens. I don't think Zenos had much of a choice with these backup quarterbacks. He had to go after something. But I don't know. Maybe that's where you have to take like Daniels over Harrison or
at least try to trade out of the 102 and get some value, because his quarterback situation did not really improve. Maybe one of these guys hits late, but in a super flex, when you're kind of swimming upstream at QB, it's a tough place to be at. So that's probably why I went Drake Maye. But yeah, so any thoughts on any of these picks? Any last rounders standing out to any of you guys? Keegs, by all means, head on out. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, so looks like, again, we got a couple more picks to squeeze out here. But any late rounders? Tunes, you were the Puka Nacua whisperer last year. Ended up panning out the league for you. So, Jackson commented in, it was round 2, pick 44. So you're not wrong there, Dane, for Dante Pettis. Actually did have some good draft capital. I completely forgot that. So maybe my personal stock is a little shaky. I still love the guy. Round 1's different than round 2. I feel fine about it. But Dante Pettis does give you the spooks. There's no doubt about it. But Puka Nacua whisperer, Tunes over there. What are you making of this last round? And anybody that's going to be kind of this year's guy in that class?
I see one, but my money was on Garendo, and he didn't fall, so that pissed me off. My guys that I originally had in the 4th round all jumped way up higher as the process went along. Like I had Baker up high. I took Malachi Corley early because I didn't think I'd get him later. He's one of the guys that I had possibly later in the draft, but a lot of the guys that I saw going late that I was looking forward to getting late didn't. So,
yeah, I know. Corley is a very interesting one. Fits such a specific role, the yak monster, and the fact that Roger's saying this was my number 1 receiver in this class, maybe plays that Randall Cobb role. I am a fan of Corley more than a lot of people don't like him because he is such a kind of one-track pony with what he does well, but he does that really, really well. And he's got a quarterback that's how he loves to play, is let me get it to you and go do your thing. And a quarterback that wanted him. Like, who knows if Rodgers will be on the field come November. There's a lot of weirdo risk. I have Aaron Rodgers on my roster. A lot of weirdo risk with Aaron Rodgers. Who knows what he's going to do at any given moment, beyond just the health injuries too. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, it's a very intriguing pick for sure.
Yeah, I also was going kind of along with the Breakfast Club thing. I heard he was living with him for a little bit, or still is. And connection, maybe.
Love the Breakfast Club.
If not a third round pick, so.
Yeah. Well, we are now Luke McCaffrey. I think that's a nice value on Luke McCaffrey there for sure. Going with the second to last pick. He was in consideration for me where I was going Braylon Allen, but I feel good about my receivers. I did want to kind of stockpile it. And Thaddeus reminding us to go get our guys. He comes to all the best ball streams. Great to see you, Thaddeus. Awesome commenter all the time. But it's true in Dynasty. And that's kind of, again, where I'm like, I went Braylon Allen over Dylan Labe for the mere sake of like feeling Allen was kind of the more common pick. But Labe is my guy. Like, that's the guy I was like, I really want to leave this draft with Labe. I didn't do it. I'll be talking to you, Duck. Maybe we can figure out some way that I get him. For sure. And the draft then wraps up there with Malik Washington, Miami receiver. Very interesting guy as well. The fact that it's similar, again, a common theme, and this is kind of how I've started to change in Dynasty quite a bit, is if I see a great play caller that loves the guy he gets, I couldn't be more enthused. Is it guaranteed he's going to hit? No, but like the way that they celebrated getting Malik Washington, Mike McDaniel's flipping out like, yes, we got him. Like apparently he was bugging the GM to go up and get him for multiple rounds, and then finally they caved and they got him, and he couldn't have been more pumped. Is it crowded? Of course. You got Tyreek, you got Jalen Waddle, maybe Odell Beckham's keeping off the field early, but I love I'm starting to more in Dynasty. Yes, you always want to buy talent of the player. That's it always typically moves up over situation, but situation-wise, I'm starting to factor in play callers and just like great minds that find the guys they want quite a bit more. So I don't know if anybody has any immediate reactions to that. Anything else with this draft before we then pose the drama of pick 103, the Bijan drama. We can kind of go into that real quick. But any last thoughts on the draft? Any picks that people love? This idea of going in on play callers? Last thoughts, Dane. Why don't you start us off? Give us your final thoughts on the draft. Anything that comes to mind.
Now, Malik is a very good Mr. Irrelevant today. That's for sure.
Thanks, Doug.
So I don't know. Corum's such a polarizing player to me, just because of his situation, and then again with the talent. You think if he goes to this team or that team, how much are we talking about him? I don't know. I think Vidal is an interesting one. I'm afraid that his draft capital might get him. Say JK isn't his old self and Gus falls off an H cliff. I just don't know if Vidal is going to be, they're going to draft someone else over him with like second or third round capital, as early as like next year. That's kind of my big thought with him. So that one stuck out a lot. Definitely intrigued by Burton, but I'm also the T Higgins owner in this league, so I've been really watching out for that, because that would have been an interesting scenario to be able to get Burton and say, T leaves, then you got Burton rising in value a bunch, and I have T, who's probably that's the weird thing about T Higgins too, is he's not guaranteed like a good quarterback if he goes somewhere else. So that's
yeah. I see him going to like the Panthers or something.
Yeah. So
or fit in maybe with Drake Maye, honestly, or someone.
Hey, I'd like that now. That'd be pretty nice.
I want Ayuk to go to the Patriots. That would be cool.
I'm hoping they are big fans of him. I've already read a lot of those reports, and man, I would love that for Drake Maye, the cannon to Ayuk. Oh, be beautiful. Jalen Polk wouldn't be looking so good anymore, I guess. But
no, that would not look good for either Javon Baker or
Norman Baker. But man, I would absolutely love that. I know, Duck, you have and I think we'll definitely be done by the time you said you have to hop off before, but just to make sure you have plenty of time, Duck, why don't you give us your kind of best and worst of the draft, and if you have anything you want to direct to Tanner while we're live, you're welcome to unleash the Duck rage. You don't have the voice tonight. It's
I'm
too
just
bad.
I got this team today.
There ain't no hard feelings at all, Tanner. I was extremely frustrated with the situation. It wasn't anything personally towards you. I want to make sure that's out in the front first. Just for the audience and everything, CJ and I had agreed upon a trade around May 4th. He was going to send me Bijan. I was going to give him 103. He initiated the trade. I didn't even start it. It just kind of came out of the blue. But we agreed for the sake of broadcast and content that we would hold physically hitting accept until right before the draft, to give us something to talk about. That was the skinny.
Bad idea.
Yeah, whenever I approached him yesterday, CJ basically assured me that the trade would still happen. And today, Tanner, rightfully so, because the value wasn't appropriate, said, no, I can't do that. I'm in charge right now. And I get it. And it rubbed me the wrong way, because in my mind, basically the contract was agreed upon. We just didn't physically sign on the dotted line. And that rubbed me the wrong way. It seemed like the trade was agreed upon. I had the proof that I showed, and it should have been completed, but it wasn't anything towards Tanner at all. He was doing what he felt was right for the team.
CJ did reach out to me about a month or two ago and was like, should I trade Bijan for the 103? And I said, no, you shouldn't. I would hold Bijan, and especially with this team. Like, this team is – like, Bijan is the best, most valuable piece that I have in this entire team. Like, I can't trade that for the 103 unless I –
Peterson.
If I didn't have 101, I would totally maybe consider it, because, like, I'm in a desperate situation where I need a quarterback, but I got Caleb. So I'm like, I don't know. I kind of want to keep that Bijan A-Kane duo. That's like the only running backs you can hold with a rebuilding squad. So, like, there's very few running backs you can hold with a squad that's like decimated as CJ's is. So.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Robinson Achane, interesting combo though. That's a nice duo to. I think after this draft, your team's going to be looking a lot different. You finally cleaned up the mess CJ made, and especially this mess that he created with the Duck today with this trade.
Yeah. This wide receiver core needs some like Christian Watson being my wide receiver one was just not flying with me. So
it's been stinky.
That's bad for sure. But I guess a couple lessons there is the trade until the dots are clicked and the sign.
Yep.
The signature's not on the page. The accept button hasn't been hit. We've all been there. It's never fun. It certainly is rage provoking, especially in Dynasty when so much is on the line with every trade. When you think you have a gentleman's agreement, and then the gentleman, in this case, again, I blame CJ for sure. I'm with you guys both.
Right,
We had to have it happen. But although Ducky could have made it happen too. I get the content idea. There's a lot of moving pieces. I don't know that as a clear right or wrong.
Lesson learned: just always either send a trade or hit the accept button right away.
Right.
If you're gonna do it, do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you guys think CJ really had to work tonight, or did he just he didn't want to be here for it?
He didn't want to face the music. I think he's definitely at
Coward.
home laughing his bad. He's saying, "Go team, CJ Brady over there." Duck switch voice with RFK.
He's enjoying the havoc he's created.
he's just sitting there with the little puppet strings, laughing at the drama he's created.
He sent like that little girl meme with the burning building in the back.
Exactly. But you guys in there, whether you're catching the replay, whether you're live with us, what do you think of the situation if a co-manager had agreed to a trade, a gentleman's agreement, 103 for Bijan, and then ultimately the co-manager is now in charge of the draft tonight, sees that offer, says no way in hell, probably rightfully so too. I would agree with that as well. I'd rather have Bijan than the 103. I mean, like Neighbors, it's not like a crazy like, oh man, you got to have Bijan over Neighbors. Like, yeah, we could be looking back at that and you might be like, damn, I wish I had Neighbors. You end up being Jamar Chase instead of Najee that year type of situation.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. Neighbors is that close that it's like not as crazy. I wouldn't be that upset, Duck, with landing Neighbors, especially with the way you cleaned up running backs tonight. Like, you set yourself up pretty well to move forward with Neighbors, and then you just got to have one of these guys, whether it's Wright, Lloyd, Davis. They're not going to hit on a Bijan level. We know that, but I mean, maybe Wright though, if he is like an Achane light, like I mean, I like them all. I think all of them, especially the Wright and Lloyd picks. It's an interesting draft, Duck. I think you were entered the draft in kind of a rough state and ultimately acquired a ton of capital and made some interesting moves with it. So,
and remember, I like Neighbors more than Marvin Harrison, and the metrics seem to back me up.
Which is nuts. I know you said you have to sign off in like 10 minutes. Don't bring up something like that and then go run. Like Neighbors over Harrison. No way. Maybe he does a few things better than Harrison.
We got to set waivers. The waiver.
We will. We'll take care of all that. I think Jackson's probably waiting for the draft to end, so we all have equal shots at going after. I hope that's what Jackson's doing. I know he's probably still tuned in there.
Well, we didn't have a waiver period apparently, so it was.
What's that?
We didn't have a waiver period apparently, so it was a little bit of a circus right there.
Yeah,
mini circus because we didn't have it. Everyone was freed up who was undrafted there, so I was like, oh shit.
Oh, did people start picking people up right now?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, no, that's the opposite of what should be happening.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
Yes, we definitely could get a waiver going immediately.
Remove Audrey Gastinet from Jay Barrett's roster.
The commissioner. I just was saying that he's a just commissioner, and he goes and makes a move there.
Did we not have waivers? This is our rookie draft.
We got to have waivers for at least a day or two so the draft dust can settle. I figured that they were already set. Of course, the commish, as I shouted at his honor, goes and makes some pickups while we're live streaming here. I love it. I love it.
Low, we were streaming too.
Yeah,
it was good
exactly. Great stuff. But no, I think good stuff from Duck. If you need to run, Duck, I know you got to go get the kiddo.
Well,
time.
I
loved your draft. I just wanted to give you those compliments.
Guys, it's a pleasure.
It was a pleasure as always. Tunes and then Tanner. What about your best and worst of the draft, and then we'll kind of sign off here.
I'm okay. Just the few. I'll just say what stands out to me. Keon Coleman at 202. That's a good value. Drake Maye at 107. That's good value. JJ at 108. Also good value. I don't know why Frank Gore is being taken. Should probably be left on waivers.
overestimate, like, yeah, if you're going to take a running back,
Yeah,
estimate shouldn't be.
Yeah,
there
I'm
right
not
now.
taking Frank Gore over estimate. Yeah, that's crazy. Trey Benson at 201. See, that's the running back I'm looking for at like that first, second round turn. Jonathan Brooks at 106 is just crazy to me. Like I can't get myself to push the draft button on a running back in this class that high. But yeah, other than that, I really like Drake Maye. I'm very high. I'm high on Drake Maye, so that's a good pick.
Hell yeah, I'll take it. I am too, and part of the pick is I'm high on him. There's the ceiling. I thought it was a little bit higher than McCarthy, but then it's also as a Pats fan, like if he pans out, it's like we're playing this game for fun. And so if my guy is like the leader of my team and now he's on my dynasty team, it's just that much better. That's kind of my tiebreaker there. If I feel him and McCarthy are very similar, I'm playing this game for fun too. Go get your guys. Absolutely. So good take there as well. What about you, Tunes? What stands out to you, whether it's your favorite values, the best, the worst? Any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
I really like the Jermaine Burton pick. He was somebody I was targeting along with Roman Wilson. Went right the two picks right before mine. I just see that they could have a lot of value. Maybe not right now, but very soon. I think Burton's going to have, T. Higgins is probably out soon. So he could easily slide in as the number 2. He's got great hands. Same with Roman Wilson. It doesn't seem like he drops anything. I think I agree with I don't know why Gore was drafted. And there's a few running backs where I'm surprised they got drafted at all. Like Will Shipley. I think he's a great receiving back, but he's got to get around a lot to see any type
I was going to say Jalen Wright's a huge reach at 203 in my opinion. That's just my take, but
with that upside though,
right.
I don't know. If we're chasing upside, I don't know how much of a reach that really is there.
Yeah,
because I don't know. Father Time's got to catch up with Raheem Mostert eventually here.
He also Duck took 3 out of the top 4 or top 5.
Yeah, he was just going all in on running backs. He got Ray Davis, Tyrone Tracy, he got Loeb, he got Jalen Wright and Marshawn Lloyd.
Loaded them up.
Loaded up on the late round running backs.
Yeah. I typically have been getting right like mid to late second, and it does feel like a little bit of a reach, but it is a swing. Like if it pans out, that's the type of scheme that it pans out huge. So
True.
I'm okay with that. Like he's one of the few running backs alongside Lloyd, honestly, that go round 2, early round 3 that I could see being like late first value, like within a year or two because of the home run ability in the right offense. So I agree. I don't typically see him go that early, but I also totally get why he did. And I love Wright. So I'd back Duck there. I think it's a solid pick for sure. Yeah. Alrighty. Did you have any other last thoughts, Tunes, before we wrap up, or did that capture kind of them all?
No, the guys I have comments on are such late picks. It's like, why bother fighting them? I hate Devontae Walker, but at the 410, who cares what you're taking?
Right. Hey, it could have been Kyron a couple years ago. Could have been Puka not too long ago, though. So right. you always want to try to swing the right way. I think McCaffrey's an interesting one to go.
I think Pacheco was a 4th round pick in our rookie draft. That rookie draft too, whichever one he came out was at 22.
Yeah.
So
hey, there's always value to be found in those rounds, and yeah, I do like Laube, as I was talking about. It's kind of crazy to rave about a UNH guy that might not even make the team, but hey, I think he's going to be a stud. So that's kind of my 4th round guy, and the motto of get your guys. I went Allen over him, and I don't know that I love it. Like I kind of wish I went with my guy.
Are we scared? Are we sharing this the screenshot here? No, should we not? Because Duck's not here for it now. And that was the conversation between me and Duck.
Oh, that's right. So we can wrap up here. And as we're wrapping up, guys, thank you again so much for being here. We got 180 of you. This is one of our first Dynasty trade offers of the league that we want to show you guys. how
Yeah,
absurd it is. But on the way out, guys, please do consider hitting that thumbs up button. It would be so helpful to get us out to more people. Nearly 200 of you here joining us live, and hopefully 200 of you more watching the replay. Thank you again so much for spending your time. But Dwayne, Dave, I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to try to make it a little smaller here so we can see it in its entirety. So this was one of your original trade offers.
We need some context here. We need some context right here.
I don't know what context to justify this offer, but let's hear it.
This was okay. So I don't know how many of us, this was like our first Dynasty League as Roto Street Journal was taking on the Dynasty landscape. So this was 2020 was our startup draft, or 2021? So it would have been 2020,
maybe. Yeah, it might. This is our fourth year of it, I think, right?
Okay,
yeah.
So that was 2021 was our startup draft. This was my first Dynasty League. I don't know how many other ones. You know, I even think, Wolf, was this your first Dynasty League too?
This is my first one. Yep, this is my first time ever doing Dynasty.
Okay,
I'm in a couple more now, but yeah, this was my first one.
So the whole lead up to this draft, I'm studying up on only startup draft values. You know, that's it. I'm not even thinking about trade values post draft at all yet. And so this is what, I don't know, maybe a month or so after our startup draft. Duck, he likes Michael Carter, and so that's who this is. And every now and then this just pops into my head, and I just laugh. Hopefully not out loud, so people don't see me laughing at nothing. And then hopefully I don't have to explain to them what I'm actually laughing at, because then I'll sound crazier. Because I'm like, okay, Michael Carter, sure, yeah. Okay, you see Coleman there? That's Tevin Coleman. Oh. He was with the Jets though. So I was like, I'll give him. That's both Jets backs. You know, I'm not going to keep Michael Carter's like handcuff here too. So I said, hey, Duck, I'm really not looking at option B here. I'm looking at option A right now. Hey man, what if I sent you like Michael Carter and Tevin Coleman and a third for Lamb, Chase, or AJ Brown? Apologies if the future pick part sounds ridiculous. I'm just trying not to get screwed because I misunderstood pick values while doing my first Dynasty League. Part of me
you're
knew,
not trying to get screwed.
No. Part of me knew this was ridiculous. But you know, as long as I wasn't 100% sure that it was ridiculous, yeah, I'm not trying to get screwed. So
yeah.
You think we could throw this one out on Twitter and see how many people would take the offer?
Yeah, I think everyone would want that deal. Yeah, Carter and Coleman in third for CeeDee Lamb seems great. Or maybe Jamar Chase. That's probably fair value. The worst trade offer maybe in the history of a Dynasty League, ladies and gentlemen. I love it though. When you don't know what you're doing, you just say your first time testing the waters and whatnot. It's like you'll see stuff like that. And this is the fun stuff you guys should be documenting if you're just getting into Dynasty. Save these screenshots so you can just rag on your buddies for the future, because this is the best. That's the whole point of doing it, is to have this type of ammo.
And sometimes the burn isn't really like intentional. Like, okay, so Tunes drafted Puka at the 406 last year, so that ended up turning out really nice. I thought it was real interesting that one day after he drafted him, he told me, yeah, I would have drafted him in the second if I thought anybody was on to him. I was like, oh, really? Thanks for we're trying to run a fantasy site here, and here you are telling all of us, yeah, hey, I would have drafted him full 2 rounds earlier, but you guys don't know what the fuck you're doing out here. So
I told Nick,
what are you gonna do?
Before even the combine, yeah. I told them.
You've been a big Puka guy. You were one of the biggest Puka stands I've ever seen, no doubt about it.
I was calling for him from before the combine.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I was too busy chasing after Dwayne McBride. So there you go.
I traded him to you. You're welcome.
Oh man. But guys, that does wrap up our Dynasty draft. Thanks again to everybody that was able to join us, for everybody that was here for the stream, that tuned in, that came on live. We greatly appreciate. One last call for that thumbs up button as you guys head out. Thank you again so much. You can find all our content. I'm sure we'll be breaking this down on rotostreetjournal.com. We have tons of Dynasty articles, tons of regular fantasy articles, best ball, everything you want, rankings for any format you do. It's all free. It's all up there at rotostreetjournal.com. So check it on out. In a world full of fantasy sheep, guys, be that wolf. For everybody else, later.